All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and a continuation of our BCBA practice exam series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like, subscribe, and share. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A lawn company just hired a new employee who will be responsible for weed eating around flower beds. At first, the new employee destroys a couple of flower beds, so the manager of the company instructs the trainer to prevent the new employee from coming into contact with the flower beds when they attempt to weed eat. This intervention could be described as what? Not an overly challenging question, but it is wordy and it is a little lengthy. Remember, what we're doing is attacking the question and understanding what the question is providing us before we go to the answer choices. So it's an intervention question. What do we know so far? We know this company just hired a brand new employee to weed eat around flower beds. The employee is destroying flower beds, so the manager tells the trainer to not let the employee come into contact with the flower beds at all. Now, without even going to the answer choices, what is the trainer doing? Well, he's preventing the new hire from making errors. This is essentially errorless learning or errorless teaching. When we prevent errors from occurring, that is errorless teaching or errorless learning. So if we look at A, yes, this intervention could be errorless learning. The trainer is not allowing errors to happen. What about B, most to least prompting? Well, it is also considered most to least prompting because errorless learning is the highest form of most to least prompting because you're not allowing errors to occur whatsoever. And so if we are errorless teaching, then we're also likely using most to least prompting. C, least to most prompting. We're not using least to most prompting since the manager is not allowing the errors to happen any longer. Remember, the whole idea behind errorless teaching is to stop errors from occurring anymore. So this intervention could be described as errorless learning or most to least prompting. A supervisor notices that a supervisee is consistently late in completing session documentation. After conducting a performance diagnostic, the supervisor identifies that the supervisee is unclear about the documentation procedures and finds the task too time-consuming. What is the most appropriate intervention to address this issue? When you get questions that want you to address a problem or an issue, make sure you are actually addressing the problem or issue at hand. It all starts with understanding the question. We know that the supervisee is not completing their documentation on time, which is a problem. But after an assessment, because this is a personnel management training question, the supervisor finds that the supervisee is unclear about the procedures and finds the task too time-consuming. So that's what we want to address here. And how are we going to do that? A, provide clear task clarification and adjust the session structure to allow time for documentation. Yeah, parsimonious answer, right? Very simple, very straight to the point. It tackles the issue directly. If you're unclear, here's a clear task clarification. If you find it too time consuming, we're going to restructure it to give you more time. Remember, dealing with personnel and staff is just like handling your clients. We have goals, we have treatments, and we're just going to adapt as needed. So A looks good. What about B? Warn the supervisee that if they do not complete their session documentation on time, they will be written up. Well, now you're threatening, borderline punishing, depending on how it affects the behavior, but it's not tackling the issue at hand, which is the supervisor is still unclear and is too time consuming. So just punishing them for not completing documentation is not addressing the issue. C, implement a reinforcement plan where the supervisee can earn bonuses for completing documentation on time. That would be great, right? But are we addressing the problem? Does that fix the fact that it is unclear and that they might not have time to do it? No. And then D, give additional supervision to the supervisee in order to monitor her time management. That might help with the too time-consuming problem, but it still doesn't help with the clarity issue. So what addresses both issues is A, clear task clarification and adjusting session structure to allow time for documentation. You, a behavior technician who's preparing to take their board certification exam next week. You feel fully prepared and know that you're going to pass. The night before the exam, someone asks you what you do for work, and you tell them, I am a behavior analyst. Is there anything wrong with this statement? Pretty easy ethical question, right? What is the ethical idea or task item about misrepresenting ourselves? Well, we don't misrepresent ourselves in practice. And so if you have a situation where someone says what you do for work and you say you're a behavior analyst, before you've passed your exam, you may potentially be misrepresenting yourself. So is there anything wrong with this statement? A, no, you do work in the field of applied behavior analysis. While that might be true, what you're implying here, since people are now more and more familiar with what behavior analysts are and do, is that you're a board certified behavior analyst. Now, you could say, well, I'm not saying I'm board certified. True, but you're still insinuating that your credentials are perhaps higher than they actually are because you haven't passed the exam yet. B, no, because you did not say you're a board certified. Well, we just covered that. You're still insinuating and implying something that may not be true. You might be misleading this person. C, yes, you're potentially misleading someone regarding your credentials. Yeah, it's too much of a gray area where you're leaving room open for interpretation, where this person might start asking you questions that maybe you feel obligated to answer, even though maybe you aren't qualified yet to answer those questions. So you can't leave any sort of ambiguity, right? It needs to be crystal clear. What do you do? Are you actually board certified or are you not? Luke begins a withdrawal design that will track a student's spontaneous social interactions during the day. Luke takes his baseline, which achieves a steady state, and then introduces his intervention, which shows an upwards trend. Once Luke withdraws an intervention, the baseline trend does not revert to pre-intervention levels. What has this design failed? Another wordy question. So let's slow down and think about it. What has this design failed? Well, what do they mean? We know Luke begins a withdrawal design that is tracking a student's spontaneous interactions during the day. So Luke takes his baseline. So let's just say this is Luke's steady state baseline. And then he goes to intervention, which shows upward trend. And then he withdraws intervention, but we're not back to pre-intervention levels. We're still here. So what has this design failed? We have baseline, we have intervention, and we have baseline 2. Should be ABAB, but you get the idea. So what has this design failed? Has it failed prediction? Well, prediction has to do with what is going to happen to this baseline if we never introduce intervention, right? And prediction says it's going to continue. That's our prediction. Verification is this baseline 2, right? Is if we can verify our prediction, we've verified our baseline. But since we haven't verified our baseline, this design has failed verification. What about replication? Replication has to do with reintroducing the intervention again, which we didn't do here, so we can't fail it if we never attempted it. This design failed verification of our baseline prediction. A behavior analyst is working with a child to increase the time spent engaging in independent reading. Initially, the child only reads for 1 minute. The behavior analyst then begins reinforcing the child for reading for 2 minutes, and once the child meets that goal, the analyst raises the criterion to 4 minutes, gradually increasing the duration over time. What process is described here? What are we doing here? What are we trying to accomplish? What do we know? We know the analyst is trying to increase time spent with independent reading. So the child can read. We want them to do it more. We go 1 minute and then 2 minutes and then 4 minutes. So what do we think we're doing here? We have a behavior. It's already known. And now we're trying to shape it so it happens more. We're trying to change something about the magnitude, right? Or the frequency or the duration, right? Some aspect or dimension of this behavior. So what process is described? A, shaping across topographies. When you shape across topographies, that's what you think of traditionally with shaping, where we take, let's say, a word like bubble, we teach buh, and then bub, and then bubble, right? We're shaping across topographies. We're teaching the response. Shaping within topographies is when we have a known response, and then we're changing magnitude of it or the dimension. In other words, reading exists. We want it to happen more. So we're not changing necessarily the topography of reading. We're changing a dimension of reading. Shaping between topographies is not a relevant term here. And then generalized shaping is also not a relevant term here, which is where fluency comes into play. So you don't get confused by C or D. This is shaping within topographies. We have a known behavior. We're trying to change a dimension of that behavior. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.